When we picture the fall of the Roman Empire, we usually imagine a sudden plunge into dust and ruin, a total blackout of civilization that left Europe in the dark for centuries. But the historical record shows something different. Rome did not simply vanish, it broke in two, and those halves established the structural foundations of our modern world. This map shows how, by the third quarter of the 6th century, the unified Roman footprint had snapped along geographic fault lines, separating the western territories from the east. This immense power vacuum forced both sides to run completely separate experiments in human survival and state building. The western half maintained its capital at Rome, attempting to navigate the collapse from the historical center of the empire. Meanwhile, the eastern half centralized its administration at Byzantium, the heavily fortified coastal metropolis later known as Constantinople. From this point, these two capitals began constructing the foundations of modern Europe and the Middle East using diverging strategies. In the West, the old borders failed quickly. Slav and Germanic tribesmen began pouring in from the landscapes of modern-day Russia and Germany. These groups arrived in successive waves, sweeping through the former empire, subjecting old Roman territories to intense ravaging and plundering. But the raiding eventually slowed. Over time, these conquering tribes settled across different pockets of Europe, living directly alongside the local populations. This visualization shows how the biological and cultural blending of these groups altered the region's demographics. As they integrated, they created new languages and hybrid patterns of government. This chaotic process of tribal integration provided the literal bedrock for the modern nations of Europe. This map outlines the Byzantine Empire, encompassing Eastern Europe, modern Turkey, Syria, and North Africa, including Egypt. Unlike the West, it survived by continuing core Roman traditions, a strong monarchy, and highly centralized administration that kept its sprawling territories intact. But they diverged from the West in belief and ritual. Rather than answering to the Catholic Church in Rome, they established their own religious authority, the Greek Orthodox Church. Byzantium remained a large, flourishing empire, operating on a refined version of the Roman administrative model. Because they maintained stability, the Byzantine rulers were able to keep their trade routes with Asia open long after the Western markets collapsed. When Arab forces expanded into Syria and Egypt, they did not erase the existing systems. Instead, they absorbed many of the Byzantine traditions of government and culture they found there. At the same time, Byzantine rulers and the Orthodox Church pushed their influence to the north, where they successfully converted Russia to Christianity. While the West was still in the process of tribal integration, Byzantium acted as a cultural server, distributing blueprints of Greco-Roman civilization to the Arab world and to Russia. The Byzantine Empire's run finally ended in the middle of the 15th century, when Constantinople fell to the Turks. The fall of the city forced scholars westward, where they introduced the preserved Greek texts that eventually spurred a revival of ancient learning in the West. We look at the West and see a map of modern Europe born from the friction of tribal migration and settlement. We look at the East and see an institutional vault, a society that safeguarded political and intellectual structures until the Arab, Russian, and eventually Western worlds integrated them. The Roman divide demonstrates that civilizations rarely disappear entirely. Instead, they fracture and commingle, providing the specific cultural and administrative blueprints for the societies that follow.